The Young and the Restless spoilers. The truth in Genoa City has never been simple, and what happened to Noah that night may be the clearest example yet of how perception can twist reality into something unrecognizable. To everyone watching from the outside, the story was straightforward. Mitch was the one who struck Noah, the one who left him broken and bleeding, the one who fled instead of facing the wreckage he caused. But beneath the surface, buried in the shadows where only fear and manipulation thrive, lies a far more dangerous story, one that points not toward guilt but toward a calculated act of deception. Mitch is not the monster they think he is. He is a man being hunted, not by the law, but by the truth itself, truth that someone else has carefully buried beneath a mountain of lies and forged evidence. When the accident happened, the city was ready to turn on him. Mitch had already earned a reputation as the volatile outsider, the man whose temper had made him an easy target for suspicion. Every whisper, every headline, every half-truth about his past became another stone thrown his way. And when Noah was found unconscious, when the skid marks matched the tires from Mitch's old car, the entire case wrote itself. It didn't matter that the car had been stolen 2 days before, or that Mitch had been seen miles away that night. The people of Genoa City didn't need proof, they needed someone to blame, and Mitch fit the story too perfectly. Sienna was one of the few who didn't turn away. Her connection to Mitch ran deeper than most people realized, tied not just by affection but by shared damage. She saw the fear in his eyes when he learned about the attack on Noah. It wasn't guilt, it was recognition. Someone was using his name, his life, his mistakes, as a disguise. And if they didn't find out who, both of them would end up behind bars, or worse. Because in Genoa City, innocence doesn't matter as much as narrative, and right now, the story was that Mitch was a fugitive running from his crime. For weeks, Mitch has been living like a ghost, moving from one safe house to another, trying to stay one step ahead of the police and whoever is pulling the strings. He knows the real killer is out there, watching the chaos unfold, satisfied as the town rips itself apart. Every lead Mitch finds seems to vanish just as quickly. Every ally he trusts eventually betrays him or disappears. Sienna became his only lifeline to the outside world. She gathers information quietly, texts from Sharon, calls intercepted from Nick, files leaked from the police department, and slowly they begin to piece together something horrifying. The attack on Noah wasn't random, and it wasn't just about revenge. It was part of something larger, a plan that began long before the crash. The evidence is almost too perfect. Mitch's fingerprints on a discarded jacket. His phone pinged near the crash site. Surveillance footage that seems to show his car speeding away. But when Sienna studies the footage frame by frame, she notices something. The license plate looks slightly altered, as if digitally manipulated. The timestamp doesn't align with the official report. Someone tampered with it. Someone who knew how to make a lie look like truth. And that someone had access to more than just technology, they had power, influence, and reason to keep Noah silent. Noah had been working on something before the crash, something tied to Newman Enterprises. He had found discrepancies in a financial report, a hidden account linked to offshore transfers. If exposed, it could have implicated several major figures, possibly even a member of the Newman family. Sharon tried to warn him to stop digging, but Noah never listened when he thought he was doing the right thing. And now, as Mitch and Sienna uncover more pieces, it begins to look like the hit wasn't personal. It was business. Someone wanted Noah dead because he had gotten too close to a truth that could destroy them. Mitch's name had been the perfect shield. He had no alibi, a criminal record, and just enough anger in his history to make people believe he was capable of anything. But the real assailant was someone who understood both Mitch and Noah's lives well enough to weave them together into a believable tragedy. It had to be someone with access to both the Newman files and Mitch's background. That alone narrowed it down to only a handful of people, and all of them had something to lose if Noah survived. Sienna fears they are running out of time. The police are closing in, the media frenzy is escalating, and Victor Newman is demanding justice for his grandson, using his influence to make sure the case doesn't fade from headlines. But every time Victor pushes harder, Mitch's danger increases. Whoever framed him now has the perfect cover. They can strike again, erase more evidence, and let Victor's rage distract everyone from the truth. Sienna knows the only way to clear Mitch's name is to expose the real culprit before another life is taken. The deeper they dig, the more they realize the pattern, the fake evidence, the digital manipulation, the misdirection, all point toward a professional setup. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a hit designed to look like an accident, with Mitch as the scapegoat. And then one night, Sienna receives an anonymous message, "Stop looking, or you'll end up like him." Attached is a photo, Noah's hospital room, taken from the hallway camera feed, time-stamped just an hour earlier. Whoever did this isn't gone. They're still watching. Mitch's guilt eats at him even though he knows he's innocent. He blames himself for ever being the kind of man people could easily frame. He tells Sienna they have to bring everything out into the open, even if it destroys them both. "If we don't fight this, we're already guilty," he says. But his return to Genoa City will not be met with forgiveness. To prove his innocence, Mitch will have to walk into the lion's den, face Sharon, Nick, and Victor, knowing none of them will believe him. Every camera in town will turn on him. Every rumor will ignite again. He will have to risk everything, even his freedom, for a chance to prove the truth. The question now is how he can do it. Evidence can be fabricated, witnesses can lie, and even the people who claim to want justice often have their own motives. Mitch's only hope lies in finding whoever altered the footage and uncovering the source of those offshore accounts Noah had been tracking. If he can connect those dots, he can reveal the person who had the most to lose if Noah talked. But doing so might mean exposing someone far higher up the chain than he ever imagined, someone inside Newman Enterprises itself, or even within the police investigation. Speculation is spreading through Genoa City like wildfire. Some believe Audra may be involved. Her ties to corporate espionage and her connection to both the Newman and Abbott empires make her a plausible suspect. Others whisper that Tucker McCall might have ordered the hit, using Mitch as a pawn in a much larger game against Victor. A few even dare to mention Adam Newman, suggesting he could have staged the attack to manipulate his father's guilt and reclaim a seat at the family table. Each theory holds some weight, and that's what makes the truth so dangerous. In Genoa City, everyone has a motive, and everyone has something to hide. As Sienna and Mitch inch closer to the truth, the lines between justice and survival blur. Someone is feeding them clues, small breadcrumbs that lead them toward a shocking realization. The person framing Mitch isn't a stranger at all. It's someone within Noah's own circle, someone who visited him just before the crash, someone whose connection to the Newman finances runs deeper than anyone suspected. And when Sienna finally uncovers an encrypted email chain linking the missing funds to a private shell company under an alias, she sees the name that makes her blood run cold. The person behind it all isn't Mitch's enemy, it's Noah's trusted mentor, a man with enough access to stage every piece of the puzzle and vanish without a trace. But by the time they realize it, it may already be too late. The mentor has gone underground, erasing digital footprints, silencing anyone who might expose him. Noah remains unconscious, trapped between life and death, unable to identify his attacker. And Mitch, standing in the ruins of his reputation, must decide whether to turn himself in or keep running until he finds proof strong enough to burn through the web of deceit. The coming days will decide whether he becomes a redeemed man, or the town's most hated fugitive. Yet the real question isn't whether Mitch will be believed. It's whether Genoa City is ready to face the possibility that its obsession with villains and victims has blinded it to the real danger lurking in its corridors of power. Because in the end, the person who nearly killed Noah didn't just want him silenced, they wanted chaos. They wanted to divide the city, pit family against family, and make sure that when the truth finally surfaced, there would be no one left willing to listen. No one in Genoa City expected the headlines to turn so fast. One day, Mitch was just another troubled man trying to rebuild his life after a string of poor decisions and broken promises. The next, his name was plastered across every screen and paper as the prime suspect in the hit-and-run that nearly killed Noah Newman. The police claimed the evidence was irrefutable. His car had been found abandoned on the side of the highway, its front end twisted and splattered with blood. Witnesses said they saw a man matching his description speeding away that night. Within hours, an arrest warrant was issued, and Mitch became a ghost. But for Sienna, his wife, the story didn't make sense. She knew her husband's flaws, his temper, his tendency to act before thinking, but she also knew the one thing Mitch could never do was leave a man bleeding on the road. The look in his eyes when she found him after he ran said everything: fear, disbelief, and the unbearable realization that someone was using his life as a weapon against him. While the rest of the world turned its back, Sienna refused to accept what they were being told. Mitch swore that his car had been stolen 2 nights before the crash, and though he had filed a report, the police dismissed it as a convenient lie. The timeline was twisted to make him look guilty, and every piece of evidence that surfaced seemed custom-built to destroy his defense. Tire tracks matched his old vehicle. His fingerprints were found on the steering wheel. Security footage showed his car's distinctive dent near the Newman estate minutes before the impact. The case looked airtight, and the more Mitch protested, the more it seemed like he was digging his own grave. With the police breathing down their necks and the public convinced of his guilt, Sienna realized that the truth would never come out if they waited for the system to find it. She took control, calling in the only 2 people she believed might help, Holden and Claire. Holden had once worked in private security for Newman Enterprises, a man with connections in law enforcement and a mind built for strategy. Claire, calm and methodical, had an instinct for reading people, and her understanding of psychology could cut through the lies that everyone else accepted as truth. When Sienna reached out to them, she didn't sugarcoat the situation. Mitch was being hunted, the evidence was overwhelming, and time was running out. She needed allies who weren't afraid to challenge power, who understood that the justice system in Genoa City wasn't designed to protect the innocent when the guilty had influence and money on their side. Holden arrived in Los Angeles first, his demeanor hard but not unkind. He had seen enough of corporate corruption to know how quickly a man could become a scapegoat. Claire followed shortly after, quietly assessing the details before speaking. Together, the 4 of them, Sienna, Mitch, Holden, and Claire, became an unlikely alliance bound by desperation. They worked out of a small rented apartment in the outskirts of the city, far from the eyes of the press, trying to reconstruct the night Noah was struck. Mitch recalled every detail he could: the text messages, the missing car keys, the noise outside their house before dawn. Piece by piece, they began to see a pattern that no one else had noticed. The theft of Mitch's car hadn't been random. The man who stole it knew exactly how to make it vanish, how to use it without drawing attention. There were no camera hits until the night of the accident, no witnesses who saw it parked or driven elsewhere. It was as if the vehicle had been hidden deliberately and only brought out when it could serve its purpose. The GPS tracker inside the car had been disabled manually, but Holden found evidence that a different signal was broadcasted from a cloned device nearby, something only someone with advanced knowledge could pull off. That discovery changed everything. This wasn't an act of reckless violence. It was planned. Someone had taken Mitch's identity, his car, and his past mistakes, and turned them into the perfect disguise for an attempted murder. Meanwhile, in Genoa City, the narrative was tightening around them. The police released a statement naming Mitch as armed and dangerous, urging citizens to report any sighting. His photo was everywhere. Victor Newman was publicly demanding accountability, and though he didn't name names, everyone knew where his fury was aimed. Sharon, shattered by her son's condition, refused to believe any theory that didn't end with Mitch behind bars. Even Nick, who once vouched for second chances, turned cold. For them, grief had hardened into anger, and anger demanded a villain. Sienna watched the coverage in silence, her heart breaking with each accusation. She couldn't contact anyone without risking their location being traced, and every attempt to send anonymous proof of Mitch's innocence was dismissed as a hoax. The only hope left was to uncover the real driver. Holden worked tirelessly, cross-referencing security footage from nearby intersections. Claire used her connections to access private hospital reports, noting that another vehicle had been registered in the same area minutes before the crash, a car with stolen plates that disappeared afterward. The pattern was deliberate, a phantom driver shadowing Noah's route, ensuring the collision would happen exactly where cameras could capture the evidence pointing to Mitch. The breakthrough came when Claire uncovered a strange financial transfer, a large payment made to a shell company the day before the accident. The money trail led back to someone who had every reason to silence Noah, a businessman connected to both Newman Enterprises and one of Victor's most powerful rivals. It wasn't just personal revenge, it was corporate warfare disguised as tragedy. Noah had stumbled upon irregularities in project funding, and his report would have exposed millions in misappropriated assets. The attacker hadn't simply wanted to hurt him, they wanted to erase a problem. Mitch's stolen car had been the perfect weapon, and his criminal record the perfect cover. Holden warned Sienna that the closer they got to the truth, the more dangerous it would become. The man behind the attack wasn't just clever, he was ruthless. And with Mitch already painted as guilty, no one would question another accident if something happened to them next. But Sienna refused to stop. Her loyalty to Mitch wasn't blind love, it was conviction. She believed that if she could prove one undeniable fact, that the car had been cloned, the footage edited, the payment traceable, then everything else would unravel. The alliance's strength came not from power, but from persistence. Days turned into nights filled with tension, whispers, and strategy. They tracked down the garage where Mitch's car had supposedly been serviced after the theft and found falsified repair logs. The mechanic listed on the report didn't exist, and the address was a dead end. But Holden recognized the pattern. It matched the same shell operation used by a corrupt logistics firm tied to several criminal cover-ups. Claire compiled every piece of evidence into a growing file, but they still lacked the one thing that could overturn the case in court: direct proof linking the mastermind to the stolen vehicle. Then came the turning point. Late one night, Sienna received a message from an anonymous number: "You're chasing ghosts. Stop, or Mitch won't be the only one wanted." Attached was a photo of her and Mitch outside their safe house, taken that very morning. The realization was chilling. The people they were fighting against knew exactly where they were. Holden immediately moved them to a new location, but the message had done its damage. Fear seeped into every decision, every plan. Sienna couldn't sleep without checking the windows. Mitch grew quieter, the weight of guilt and frustration suffocating him. Even innocence becomes a burden when no one believes it. But it was Claire who refused to let despair win. She believed that the key wasn't just in the evidence, but in the psychology of whoever framed Mitch. They wanted him alive, she said one night. If they only wanted him gone, they'd have silenced him. They needed him visible. They needed him blamed. That insight shifted everything. The real goal wasn't just to punish Mitch, it was to control the narrative, to make sure the police stopped looking for the real driver. By keeping Mitch on the run, the true culprit remained untouchable. Their alliance began to turn from defense to offense. Using Holden's contacts, they traced the shell company's bank records and uncovered a secondary account linked to an executive named Marcus Laird, a quiet but ambitious man recently fired from Newman Enterprises for personal misconduct. Further digging revealed that he had a history of hacking and data manipulation. The evidence suggested that he had access to Mitch's digital records, fingerprints, and vehicle registry, the perfect ingredients for framing him. It was Marcus who had orchestrated the crash, paid off a technician to tamper with surveillance footage, and vanished the next day under a false identity. Now the question was how to prove it. Holden knew that presenting their findings to the police would be suicide. No one would take fugitives at their word. Instead, he arranged a clandestine meeting with a journalist who owed him a favor. If the story went public first, the authorities would have no choice but to investigate. But before they could make their move, news broke that Noah had regained consciousness. For Sienna, that moment was both hope and terror. Noah was the only living witness. If he remembered what happened, he could clear Mitch or condemn him forever. She hesitated to contact Sharon or Nick, fearing that any communication could expose their location. Mitch wanted to turn himself in, to face whatever came next. "If he remembers me, it's over," he said, his voice trembling. "If he doesn't, maybe we still have a chance." But Sienna wouldn't let him surrender without fighting. She had come too far to let the truth die in silence. As dawn broke over Los Angeles, the Alliance made their final move. Holden sent the encrypted files to multiple outlets. Claire drafted an anonymous statement detailing the evidence, the shell companies, the altered footage, and the name of the man who orchestrated the frame-up. Sienna watched as the upload bar filled, her pulse racing. Somewhere between guilt and faith, she still believed that if the truth reached daylight, justice might follow.